seen that.
They scratched this floor. That's what happened to them.
Who did?
This deer.
Oh.
Took Trixie and Snowball to be trimmed cut yesterday, and the lady had a little baby deer trying to feed it a bottle. A bush hog was filled.
This is Mother, and she's going to tell us a story. Mother, tell me a story.
This is a story about when I was about 14 or 15 years old. When us kids was all home, and one night my mom and dad, they was gone, and my aunt was there with them, and they was out drinking around. And us kids decided that we wasn't going to stay in that house that night with them drunks. So we went and gathered us up a bunch of shucks in sacks. We made us like a shuck bed. We took it way back up in the woods, way up the holler, quite a little ways from the house. And then we carried us some quilts up there. And we took us some cookers and some skillets. And we went and then I went back down there and we caught us a couple of chickens. And we killed them and plucked them and cut them up. We was going to have fried chicken next morning, and we had us some biscuit bread. We stirred it up, making it like a little hoe cake on our fire. And I think my aunt was with us, Aunt Marie, but she was younger than me, and one of Aunt Susie's girls, Wanda, I think, was with us. And we even took the alarm clock up there. They didn't even have a clock down there in the house to tell what time it was. So we had the alarm clock up there. And it was a real nice night, warm. We slept up there in the woods. And next morning, my sister, Lucille, bless her heart, she went out on this big old rock, great big old rock, climb upon it, and she went, It was getting daylight, and it's time for the roosters to crow. And my Aunt Susie and her boyfriend that was with her, they was out looking for us, and they come out up that way, and they heard Lucille, and then they come on up there, and they found us where we was. So then I got up, and I was fixing them some breakfast, frying the chicken, making the bread. I think we had fried potatoes, had a lot of tomatoes. We sliced tomatoes. We had our breakfast, and our aunt and her boyfriend, they ate breakfast with us. Then here we'd carried all that stuff up there, and boy, we had a lot to carry that. So, Mom never said nothing to us. So we had a good time up there in the woods. And so we used to get out around the hills and build a lot of playhouses. We'd carry big rocks and lay them like we'd have separate rooms, we'd have a room in here. We'd act like we just lived in a mansion. And I know my mom had come out a lot of times to see where we was playing, and she'd come around and she wanted to see which one was the cleanest playhouse. She said the one that'd keep a real clean playhouse would make a nice housekeeper.
That was you, huh?
Yeah, my mother was a clean housekeeper. She never had very much to clean, but I tell you, my mom was a clean housekeeper as long as she was able to do things. I learned a lot from my mom. I learned to. And I'm glad I had a mom like I did, even she did drink sometimes.
Yeah.
Of course, that was in later years, and always said, well, she couldn't lick them, so she joined them.
Okay, take a break now.
Melissa, and it was like this brown sugar that you buy now. It wasn't, granulated. It was just, big sacks of sugar. And Mom would tie that sack, and she'd say, now I can tell if anybody bothers this.
Uh-huh.
And if they bother it, boy, she'd nettle her hide. Don't think she wouldn't. She'd get a limb. You know, I'd untie that sack and I'd watch just how untied it. And I'd get some sugar out and make us some candy. Tie it right back the way Mom had it. Kind of loosen it up like there wasn't no sugar gone out of it. You know. Make us some candy. Then I'd wash this cook or whatever I made it in. And then we'd eat it, you know, and wouldn't have nothing where Mom could see that we bought. And then we'd get out playing with Birdie. You know, she was just, about 6 years old. And what's she pointing at me for? Huh?
Keep talking.
Oh. And if we made her one little bit mad, and tell Mom on us. Well, Birdie knows I know we're bad. And we'd be real good to Birdie. We'd keep her just, if she got a little bit mad, I know a lot of times I'd run almost at the door going in the house, and I'd just hug her and carry her back out, you know, and just be real good to her. Because she's going to go tell Mom on us for getting into the sugar, making candy. Yeah.
Okay.
There was, once there was two guys that had been traveling.
Can you speak up a little
And
bit?
this one guy, they stopped into this place to spend the night. And this one guy, he was a big eater. And this other guy, he told this other guy, he said, why did State sit down to his table and start eating? He said, I don't know when to quit eating. He said, well, I'll tell you what. When I think that you've ate enough, said, I'll step on your toes. Said, and you can get up from the table. So he sat down and just started off to eating, and here come a dog was in there, and it on the table, and it got on his foot, so he thought as that guy stepped on his foot, so he quit eating. So then nighttime come, and they got into bed, and then way long in the night, he woke up and told this other guy, he says, I'm just starving to death. He said, I'm so hungry. He said, well, this guy was buddy, you know, said, well, I'll tell you what to do. Said, you go in there. Said, there's a pot of beans sitting on the stove, and said, there's some milk in there sitting in a pitcher. Said, you get you some. Well, he tied a string to his hand and went to where he had to go get that in the kitchen, and then while he was gone, he got up and tied this string over to the old man and woman's bed. And when he come back with the beans, and then he had the milk, pitcher of milk, and he come back and he got to the bed, and that old woman, she was laying there, and no cover on her, and he couldn't see too good, but he could hear her, and she was just going, and he said, well, don't blow them so they're not hot. So she had her hind end turned up, you know, she eat so many beans. She was just, said, don't blow them so they're not hot, so if you don't take them, I'm going to dash them in your face. So she didn't do nothing, so all at once he just hauled off and splashed her with them, you know. And then he realized where he was at and went back to his bed, and then and by that time, when he got back to his bed, that old woman had woke up, and she said, oh man, oh man. He said, what? She said, I've done something I ain't done for many days. Said, I've done a job in the day. He said, well, get up. Said, you go out there and on the leak of the house. Said, it's raining. Said, just stick your hand in on the leak of the house and wash it off. So, then that time that boy got back to that bed and he had that picture hung on his arm. He told that guy, he said, I've got this picture hung on my arm now. What am I going to do? He said, well, go out there in that white stump you see pretty close to the house and just hit it and break it off. So we went out there and that old woman had her hind end turned up and on the leak of the house, and he hauled off and hit her, and she hauled, oh man, run here, I'm thunderstruck. Traveling, and he was way out in the country, and like he stopped in at this farmhouse and asked these people if he could spend the night. And they let him go upstairs to sleep that night, and way long in the night he got about to use the bathroom, and he didn't know where to go or anything, so he just got his boot and he just filled it full. So next morning when he got up, he just took his boot. He went like this, he's going to throw it out the window, and he went like that, and it made a big streak across the wall. He went downstairs and told the old man and woman, said, I did some damage to your room up there, said, I want to pay you for the damage, said, here's $5. That old man said, well, we got to see what kind of damage you did before I charge you $5. So that old man and woman went upstairs and looked at that, and that old man looked at him and said, I'll give you $5, you tell me what position you got in to do that. When we sold our piece of land that our dad went to us, after my dad had died, we was down there in town in that lawyer's office. And we'd been down there seemed like forever. And this lawyer, he's sitting there, and he had a pencil, and he's writing, and he's writing, and he's writing, and figuring, and writing, and a figure. Only said, for a little I'd tell him to figure out how the old man shit his britches not in his drawers. And then she said these two old guys was in the bed sleeping together. This one got about to use the bathroom, you know, and he didn't know where to go or nothing. So this other guy, they was in the bed with their clothes on, you know, had them old bib overalls on. So he just pulled this other guy just reached over and pulled his bibs back out, you know, and just went ahead and used them, you know. And then that guy woke up, so he marking with his finger on the wall, marking with his finger on the wall, and this other guy said, what are you figuring? He said, I'm trying to figure out how a fella could shit his britches not in his drawers.
Okay, go.
This was on a Saturday. Me and Babe, my brother, had been down the road, and we run into my cousin, John Henry Shepherd. And he was going to go home with me. He had been in the Army, and I hadn't seen him for years. And I had a chicken killed. I was going to cook it and make some dumplings. And he was going to eat dinner with us. And I was in the kitchen getting the chicken all ready and everything. And the next thing I looked out in the road, and Babe had a hold of a fence post, and he was chasing this little Orville Conley down the road. And I got out there, and I was trying to make Babe behave himself. And by that time, we was all out there in the road, and here come a truck up the road, and it stopped, and Clyde was in the truck, and he run over to me, and I was getting pretty close to Babe, and I was going to slap Babe right in the face, and Clyde run up pretty close to him, and I hauled off to hit Babe and hit Clyde in the face. And I didn't hardly know Clyde. I had seen him a few times, very few times, and but that day, and then he stood there and talked to me for a while, and then later on, a week or so, I was up to this man's house. Last name was Lovely, and Clyde had been living with him because Clyde drove his truck around a lot. He was an old man, and he couldn't hardly drive very good. And then Clyde got to talking to me, and he wanted to make a date with me, and he said, I'll be down at your place at 7 o'clock, pick you up, and we'll go somewhere, drive around or something. And then it was on a Sunday when I had the date with him to be at my place at 7. And earlier that day, about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Ellick, my stepdad, come down, and I needed to go to the grocery store. And I asked Ellick to take me to the grocery store, and we went down the road. And way on down. We had a long ways to go to the grocery store, and we passed this car sitting beside the road, and I looked in that car and I seen Clyde in there all hugged up with a girl, and I said, "There's that Clyde Joseph." I said, "I got a date with him tonight." So I thought, well, he won't show up, I won't see him. But when 7 o'clock came, he was there, and he come by, and I don't even remember now where we went or what we done or nothing, but anyhow, from then on, Clyde had come see me, and this girl made a remark. She said, well, I could see him through the week, but she'd see him on a Saturday and Sunday, but Clyde never did go back to see that girl anymore. So ended up, we got married and lived happy ever after. These two old men was traveling, and people would stop, and stay at a farmhouse or something. They'd stop and stayed all night with this old farmer, and way long in the night, this one old guy got to wanting to use the bathroom, and he didn't know where to go and nothing, and so they'd right in the bed with their clothes on. This old guy had all dibbed overalls, so this one old guy just reached, they was laying back to back each other, and then he just turned over and pulled his old dibbed overalls back, going back behind, and he just filled them full. So then he went back to sleep, and early that morning this one old guy woke up. He's laying there close to the wall, and he marking on the wall with his finger, marking on the wall, and this other guy said, "What are you figuring?" He says, "I was trying to figure out how a feller would shit in his drawers and wouldn't his britches." Oh, that old me told me that when they was put my dad's land up for sale, because Uncle Frank Dad brought back from California, and Dad's piece of property, he was selling it to get the burial expensive.
Yeah.
And we went down there and see that lawyer. There was 7 of us, and the land was divided up. Of course, Uncle Frank got his part of the money out of it. And this old lawyer, he was in there, and he was a figuring and a figuring, and I almost said for a little I'd asked him to figure it out. Old fella,
Crapped in
did
his
a
pants.
job in his britches, not in his drawers. They used to call them long johns, drawers.
What about that one where that with that picture on her head?
Picture on it.
The milk pitcher?
Oh gosh. It was on her hand. That's kind of.
Yeah. Well, don't say that on there word.
That's got it long.
Oh.
Well,
Come on, Jonathan, you can come in and sit down.
These 2 fellers had stopped at this old man and woman's house, and they was going to stay all night this night, and they had dinner on the table, and this one guy, he was a big eater. He'd sit down at the table, he'd just eat and eat, and he'd eat till he'd be ashamed, and he told this boy, he said, now, when we sit down and eat, and when you think that I've had enough, said, you reach over and set your foot on my foot, and I'll get up from the table. So this boy just sat down, and he just started eating, and they had an old dog in that house, and it come along, and he stepped on his foot. So he got up, he thought that was that boy, he'd had enough. So he got up, and then when they went to bed, way long in the night, he woke up, and he was just starved. He told this other guy, woke him up and said, "I'm starved and I'm so hungry." He said, "Well, I'll tell you what," said, in there on the stove sits a pot of beans and bread, and in the refrigerator, in the ice box there's some milk in a pitcher, and he got it. He said, well, I don't know where I can find in the kitchen, find the way to get back to my bed. He said, well, I'll tie a string to you around your wrist. You can go in there, and he tied this string around his wrist, you know, and he goes in there. And he said, oh, well, when you get you something to eat, it says, bring me back some to the bed. So he got a dish, and he brought him back bringing him back a dish. But while he's gone in there, while this other boy got up and tied the string over to the old man and woman's bed. So he come back, and the old woman's laying there, and you know, it's dark and things, and he couldn't hardly see or anything. And the old woman, she was laying there, probably no cover on her, you know, and she'd eat so many beans that she was just laying there.
Uh-oh.
He said, you don't need to be blowing them, they ain't hot. And so he stood there for a little bit, and he said, now if you don't take these, I'm going to dash them in your face. So he stood there a little bit, and so he just threw them on that old woman's hind end, you know. So she lay there a little while, and he went back. Finally, just seen they was on the wrong to the wrong place, you know. And then he had this pitcher of milk, and he got it hung on his arm, and he couldn't get it off. And went over there to the bed, then to this other guy, and then the old woman woke up, and she fell down there, and she woke up her old man. You said, honey, I've done something that I've not done for a long time. He said, well, what have you done? She said, oh, he said, well, get up and go out there. It's raining outside, and turn around on the leak of the house and wash it off. So she goes out there and to wash that off, and then this guy has this pitcher hung on his arm, and he goes back and he tells that other guy, and he said, well, go outside, said, and this white stump you see out there, said, just hit it over, break it off. Goes out there, and that old woman got her hind end turned up on the leak of the house, and he seen it, so he just hauled off and hit her with the pitcher. She hollered, old man, run here, I'm thunderstruck.
Thunderstruck. Yeah.
I'll tell you this, and I told this Maxine the other day. We was talking about something other, about somebody else talking about what kind of position they got in to do something. It was something other, and they was talking about, you know, couldn't figure out what position they got in, and that made me think of that little joke, you know. And I told Maxine and them that, and I tell you, Evelyn, that tickled them. But Evelyn's heard me tell it before, but she laughed, you know. This guy, was traveling, he stopped to stay all night at this old farmer's house, and way long in the night, he got to use the bathroom. And he didn't know where to go, where the bathroom or where his outside toilet or anything. He didn't know where it was at. He was in a strange place. And so he had a pair of boots on, so he thought he just filled his boot full. So next morning when he got up and he's going to go over to the window and empty it out of his boot, and so he just got a hold to the toe of his boot, and he just went like this, plumb across the wall. So he seen what he'd done. He went downstairs and he told the old man, said, here, I'm going to give you $5 for the damage I did to your room last night. The old man said, no, I ain't going to take your money till I see what you did to my room. So he goes up there and he said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you $5. You tell me what position you got in to do that. Holman Ford and Lucille, we used to sit before the fireplace, and can't remember well. Babe was 4 years old. Selden's about 6. And I don't know if Selden and Birdie and all of them, I don't think Ford wasn't there. He must have been out paying houses or something. And I was sitting there sewing. I was sewing on making some little doll things. I'd make little doll dresses and little doll pillowcases and make little tiny pillows. And I was sitting there sewing, and they was playing cards. Some cards, I don't know what they was playing. And directly, baby, he'd been outside around, and I didn't know what he was doing. You know, he's 4 years old, and he'd go out and play and things. And he come in, he's standing right in front of me, and he was just trembling, shaking. I said, "What's the matter with you, babe? Are you sick?" "Yeah, I want to go to bed." And I said, "Are you sick?" And then someone kindly looked out the door, and they said, "Oh, the playhouse is on fire." And we run out there, and then it was just about burning, you know, ready to top to cave in. And Lucille and Bertie had a doll. They had a doll piece in there, and they was crying over their doll. And Mom was down to Bertie Shepherd's, right below us. And then she heard us kids kind of crying and hollering and things, and she come, and the playhouse was just about burnt down. Well, Babe told later that he was in there, and Dad built us a little chimney to it.
Who built the playhouse?
Me and Ford started it, getting little poles and cutting them down and hauling them in with the mule. And then Dad, then he put in and he helped us. And then he covered it for us and floored it. And then he built us a little chimney to it, little chimney, and had a little open fireplace. And we'd go out there and sit in that and have us a little fire, you know. Well, we had a fire in it that day. It was out there, but Baby went out there, and then Mom, she kind of papered it around some. I can't figure out now what kind of paper, how she put on it, but she had it papered for us. And Babe would light, he said he'd light a little stick and get it fire, and he'd touch it to that paper. And then he'd burn a little bit, he'd put it out. Then he'd light and it'd burn, he'd put it out. Then it got to burning so big that he couldn't put it out. And then he said he went down and looked in, who had a little baby calf, and he said he went down and looked at the little baby calf, and then he seen the fire burning so big it scared him, you know. And that's when he come in and was standing right in front of me, and he was just trembling, you know, and I thought he was sick. And he'd, you know, set the playhouse on fire.
How old is you?
Huh?
How old is you?
Oh, I was about 16.
And you were making videos?
Well, honey, I played in playhouses.
Well, see, back then, that's what kids did.
Yeah, we wasn't out looking for no boyfriends
Friends
and things. Yeah, us kids, well, I tell you, I love to play in a playhouse and to eat when I was hungry. I'd do whatever Mom would have for us to do. We'd hurry up and do it so we could go play. Oh, and we had playhouses. We'd go out with rocks and make playhouses, and we'd have things, and we'd play. Oh, I can remember that. And you know, I have dreams about being in these places.
Hello. 3rd, Misty's been gone 1 year today, and here lifting up Mother when we're not home, how she gets.
You have 6 old messages.
Too bad. You fellers must be feeling better out running around.
Shut it off now.
I did.